When news arrived that the last two J-7 fighters had been destroyed on the ground, an era spanning more than 3 decades came to a close. From late February to mid-March, the large-scale airstrikes launched by the United States and Israel against Iran virtually wiped the Iranian Air Force's operational forces off the organizational charts. So, following this asymmetric war of attrition, have Chinese-made fighter jets in Iranian skies truly become a thing of the past? To grasp the magnitude of these losses, one must first understand the Iranian Air Force's pre-war reality, strong on paper, but barely adequate in practice. As of early 2025, the main force of the Iranian Air Force, as pieced together by the outside world through various open-source intelligence, still appeared to maintain the scale of the Pahlavi era, approximately 30 F-14 Tomcats, 30 MiG-29S, over 20 Mirage F-1S, over 20 J-7 series fighters, over 60 F-4 Phantom IIs and F-5 Tigers, plus over 20 Su-24 fighter bombers. Appearing in any military balance report, these figures would resemble the standard arsenal of a regional middle power. But behind these numbers lies the parts crisis, a chronic problem the Iranian aviation industry has failed to resolve for 4 decades. Since 1979, no US-made fighter has received original manufacturer parts. The fleet has been maintained through cannibalization, reverse engineering, and even black market smuggling, resulting in a consistently low operational readiness rate. A significant portion of the aircraft are effectively parked in hangars, serving as spare part donors. Although the J-7 series avoided the predicament of US-made parts, it has long played a numbers filler role in the Iranian Air Force's inventory due to its technological lag. Iran's history with the J-7 dates back to the reconstruction period following the Iran-Iraq War. In the 1980s and 1990s, to compensate for massive wartime losses, Iran procured fighter jets through multiple channels, including over 30 J-7 and aircraft imported from China. The technical specifications of this batch roughly corresponded to the J-7-2, a mature export model of its era. Featuring a nose-mounted intake and delta wing configuration, it was equipped with two 30mm cannons and two close-range air-to-air missiles, making it a relatively agile and versatile choice given the regional context at the time. However, it must be acknowledged that this batch of J-7Ns did not receive the upgrades seen in later variants like the J-7E and J-7G, which featured twin delta wings and more advanced radar systems. Over the past 3 decades, despite Iran's own limited maintenance efforts, external estimates suggest that by early 2025, only about 20 of these aircraft remained operational, primarily tasked with secondary air defense and auxiliary ground attack missions. Within the entire Iranian Air Force, they are the only Chinese-made fighter jets, yet they have never truly become a core force. The large-scale airstrike that began on February 28, 2026, completely shattered Iran's illusion of maintaining an air defense posture with its aging fleet. The US and Israeli Air Forces deployed F-22S, F-35S, F-16S, F-15S, F-18S, and even B-1B strategic bombers, executing virtually every standard maneuver of modern air warfare, from stealth penetration and electronic suppression to saturation strikes. The Iranian Air Force faces a dilemma. It lacks both an early warning network capable of effectively detecting stealth targets and a sufficient number of airworthy aircraft to contest air superiority. During the airstrikes over the past month, Iran's fleet of F-14S was the first to be targeted for elimination. According to earlier reports by foreign media, all airworthy F-14S have been systematically destroyed on the ground or in the air, marking the complete exit of the legendary Tomcat family from the stage of history. Russian-made Su-24S and MiG-29S have also been nearly wiped out in the sustained strikes, while the fate of the J-7 was sealed on March 19 when the last 2 aircraft were destroyed. At this point, all Chinese-made fighter jets in the Iranian Air Force have been completely wiped out in actual combat, a physical reset that also marks a complete gap in the Chinese-made models within their equipment system. So, will Iran import Chinese-made fighter jets again after the war? The answer to this question depends on several practical factors. First is the urgency of demand. After this war, the Iranian Air Force has essentially been reduced to square one. Regardless of the form the post-war ceasefire takes, the void in its air power must be filled. Iran's domestic aviation industry has long been limited to assembly and maintenance, lacking the capability to develop third-generation or higher fighter jets. Therefore, reconstruction can only rely on external imports. From a geopolitical perspective, Western nations are unlikely to supply any military equipment to Iran, leaving Russia and China as the only 2 options. From the perspective of system compatibility, Russia appears to be the more logical choice. The Iranian Air Force already has practical experience operating MiG-29S and Su-24S, and there is an established foundation for the maintenance of Russian-made fighter jets in Iran. Furthermore, Iran and Russia have maintained long-term coordination on the Syrian issue, and military trade channels between the two countries remain relatively open. However, the issue lies in the fact that Russia is currently deeply embroiled in its own military conflicts. Its aviation industry's production capacity must prioritize replenishing the front lines, resulting in significantly extended delivery cycles for export models such as the Su-30 and Su-35. Even if Iran were to place an order now, it would have to wait several years before the aircraft began arriving in batches. This pay first, wait in line scenario is clearly not the optimal solution for Iran, which urgently needs to rapidly rebuild its air defense capabilities. In contrast, the supply capacity for Chinese fighter jets is far more stable, as the current mainstay of China's export fleet, the J-10CE, is equipped with an active phased array radar and advanced air-to-air missiles. Its overall combat capabilities rank among the top in the third-generation upgraded category, and with a mature production line, it can be delivered relatively quickly. However, the issue is not merely whether Iran is willing to buy, but rather that both parties involved in the arms sale must simultaneously consider a series of complex factors. Weapons exports are never merely a matter of technology or price. They involve regional power balances, diplomatic coordination with relevant parties, and predictions regarding the post-conflict regional order. Although the J-17 series of fighter jets meets Iran's needs in terms of both performance and cost, its production line is located in Pakistan, which involves multi-party technology licensing and export controls, making it difficult to bypass various restrictions to supply Iran alone. Another often overlooked dimension is the pace of system reconstruction. Even if the Iranian Air Force acquires new fighter jets, it would face a comprehensive overhaul, from pilot training, ground support, and ammunition stockpiles to tactical manuals, a process that takes longer than the procurement of the equipment itself. For Iran, the top priority in the post-war period may be to restore an air force with basic air defense capabilities as quickly as possible, rather than pursuing the optimal aircraft model. In this sense, whether Russian or Chinese, the supplier that can offer, off-the-shelf, aircraft, a complete support package, and the replenishment capacity required for high-intensity attritional warfare is more likely to make it onto Iran's procurement list. From a broader perspective, the story of Chinese fighter jets in the Iranian Air Force may not come to a complete end with the destruction of the last two J-7s. The introduction and continuation of a weapons system are rarely determined by a single campaign, but rather depend on the post-war realignment of the international landscape, the evolution of regional security structures, and the strategic positioning of major powers in the Middle East. Having served in Iran for over 3 decades, the J-7 has undergone the entire process from being a mainstay to a supporting role, and finally to complete depletion. Its retirement marks the end of a natural equipment life cycle. However, the technological capabilities and combat effectiveness of the new generation of Chinese fighter jets are now on an entirely different level compared to the J-7 series of yesteryear. Applying past experiences to predict future choices often leads to inaccuracies. The chapter of Chinese fighter jets over the Persian skies has temporarily drawn to a close, but whether this conclusion is followed by a question mark or an ellipsis will likely only become clear once the smoke of battle has cleared, depending on how the parties involved finalize their agreements at the negotiating table and in arms trade contracts.